Hello everyone, in this one short video we're going to talk about that what is version control. No matter which type of profession that you're into in the field of the tech, whether you're a data scientist, you're a software developer, you want to do the freelancing, typically everywhere, every time you write a piece of a code, you have a need of sharing it to the world. You have a need of creating a backup. You have a need of collaborating with others. So for all of these, one concept which this entire industry uses is called as version control. In this video, I'm going to make sure that this should be one single source video for you so that all of you, whether you are a student or professional, you understand that how the version control works. And the market leader in the version control, which is Git, will take the example of that. We'll take a hands-on example. We write a lot of code and understand how using Git and GitHub you can, in a very streamlined manner, do the version control of your project. So let's get started. So now let's get started and understand what version control system or the Git is. Let's quickly get started. So in this video, what we're going to understand, let's try to quickly highlight that what are the things that we're going to master here. So the very first thing that we need to go and understand is the introduction to the version control system and the Git. I always say to you people that whenever you start learning any concept, you should follow always this approach of what? You should first understand what is that. Then you should ask the question, why am I learning? There are 1,000 things. Why do I need to go and learn this concept itself? And only when you are done with this what and why, the other part of it, which is the how part, that becomes very simple. That becomes very easy. So we go and get started with the introduction to the version control system and the Git. Then we get started with the Git control. Then I go and start making changes to the local repository, branching in the Git, syncing with the central repository. So we go and talk in detail about anything and everything which is needed for us to go and master this version control concepts. Now let's try to move on. The very first question, let's start with the question itself. And you guys tell me, let's say that I have a single file, right? For example, I have a file, this file, and here I have written some text, for example, hello students. Now later on, I want to go and change this content of this file, one hello content. I go and say that hello Vishwa. Now I have two options. One option is that the same file which was initially, which has the content called as hello students, I go and change that hello student and write Vishwa, hello Vishwa. Now if I go and do it, I'll lose the old change. Correct? I'll go and lose the old change. So let's say that if my request or my requirement is that every change that I go and make in the file, I want to maintain that change. I want to maintain the copy of that change. How can I do it? For doing it, what I can do is that every time I have to make a change in the file, let's say that I have to make any change in the file, I just make a copy of another file, create another file called F1, and here it has the change. So that way I have the initial copy of the file also and the new copy of file also. Again, if I have to make any change in this, I create a new file and I go and call it, this is the file updated, this is the file number 3. Again, so every time I am changing anything, I don't go and change in the existing file. I create a copy, a new file, and I make changes in those. This is now the hard way, but one of the ways through which I can go and manage and maintain all the versions. Now people, you might be thinking that why I do need to go and maintain the version itself. Let's first of all understand this question, that why I need to maintain the version. And what is the meaning of the version? I believe all of you who have been using mobile phones, every day, every few months, you'll see that I've got an update. A new version has to be installed on my phone. All the apps that you're using. The Android, if you see the Android, they have the different versions. The different versions means that typically if you have a piece of, whether you have an application, right? When you keep on improving the functionalities of the same app, right? So each single piece where you have added the new functionality, that will call as version 1, then you go and add more features to become version 2, then you go and add more feature, you go and add the version 3 itself. The requirement to have the different version is that, let's say that at any moment of time, I want to go and know that which feature was there added when, I can actually go and find those versions. Another advantage also, and typically this is to more from a tech perspective, let's say that you are a software developer, right? And you're working on some code. Every time you make an enhancement in a code, a new version comes up. So let's say that previously the code was on a version v1, you add some changes And after doing the changes, you got a version v2, and this v2 version you're going and deploying in the production. And as soon as you deploy this new code in the production, something broke, your website has gone down, people have started criving and complaining. Now at this point of time, you don't have the luxury of time where you can go and debug and fix and create a v3 out of the v2. This is normally you don't have. So whenever such production issue happens and you feel that this deployment is the cause of this issue, what you will do? You would want that I should go back to the previous version and deploy this to the production. Now, if you want to go back to the production and then deploy it, you need to maintain that. And that's one of the main or biggest use cases of the versions. When you go and maintain the version, you have the luxury that you can always go back in the past, see what was the stable version last it was working, and you can make use of it, right? So that's one of the main reasons for using the version. So in the world of the softwares, in the world, the field where we software engineers works, everything that we do, we keep on iterating, we keep on doing better, we keep on adding enhancements. So everything we build a software, tools, operating systems, mobile phones, for everything there will be a version, and every version we need to track so that if needed we can go back. And that's why the version control becomes exceedingly important. And one of the ways of achieving this version control is that you keep on creating the multiple copies. But if you go and follow this approach, what are the challenges of this? Can you guys think of what are the challenges? If you go and try to manually do the version control, there are multiple challenges. What are those multiple challenges? The very first challenge is it is very difficult to identify the changes between the two files. For example, I had this file 1.txt, then I have made this file 2.txt, then I have this file 3.txt. Every time I had to make a change. But if somebody asks you that what is the difference between this file 1 and the file 2, you cannot tell it programmatically. You will have to go, see, do the difference. It's very complicated. So very difficult to identify the changes between the two files. That's number one. Number two is that right now I only had one file and I have to make changes, so I'm able to do it manually. Think of the bigger projects in the industry where there will be not 1, 200 but thousands of files. Every time you make a change in few couple of thousands of the files and then again and then again, do you think it's manually possible? Again, it's very tough to go and manage it. Third is, see, the purpose of you writing code most of the time is not that you will be a solo player. Most of the time when you work in the industry, typically you will have a team where 10, 20 people are working on the same project. So you would have to, whatever code that you have written, you have to pass on that code. And you also have to accept those codes. Now, when you work on a files like this, it's very tough to collaborate. And that's where again it becomes difficult. The last but not the least, when you are alone, that's fine. But sometime, let's say that you are working in the industry. It's a very crucial project. And there are multiple developers working on this. There's a dev 1 and there's a dev 2. Now, any small change which brings impact on this project is being very greatly, you want to track it badly. So that you know if something goes wrong, who is the culprit, or something goes right, who has to be celebrated. Now, if it's a simple file system you're trying to do, maintaining that metadata, that who did this, when it was done, what were the changes which were impacted, what is the difference, how it is different from the previous version, what are the different versions that have been created, all those things manually is not possible. When you go and make use of a version control tool, that could be streamlined, right? So if I go and give you an example of a very basic version control tool which we have been using, even if you're not a techie, typically Google Drive, typically if you go and see any Google Drive doc and you go and see the history, it will go and give you the versions of how it was modified in the last span of the time. So now we are all set and we understand that manually it's not possible, but version control is. So what is actually version control system? So version control system is basically a tool, I will go and say that, or it is a software which helps us manage the code better, What it means that in your computer, in your laptop, and the machine where you're writing the code, if you have a folder and then you have the files under this folder, whatever the changes that are doing in the file, a version control systems is there to manage the changes that you have done to that folder, to the files, and it also helps you collaborate with the other folks. So if I go and say on a high level, what are the three main advantages of using a version control system is, first of all, you are able to manage the entire versioning of the code base that you have written. So whatever the changes that you have written from the day one till today, all the individual versions will be maintained. Number two, you will be able to make a remote copy of it, so that even if something is lost on the local, you still have the remote copy available on the remote servers. And thirdly, you should be able to easily go and collaborate with the other peers. Fair? So just repeating the same thing, it helps you to keep track of all the modifications that I made to the code, and it helps you with the collaborated with the other programmers. Why this is so important? Because normally, you never work in a solo manner. You are not a solo developer. Normally, in any company that you go and work for, you will find that multiple developers, multiple people will be working on the same project, and each person will write a portion of the code. So ultimately, all these code has to be combined together to make some meaningful outcome, and that's where the version control system stands out. If I have to go and again talk about the advantages apart from those three, it's make it easy to find out the changes between different versions of a file, right? It's more efficient because it's software. It's more optimal to do in the local system itself. It helps you to easily collaborate. You know the metadata, who made the changes, when that was done, what are the changes done. You will be able to make the backups, and you will be able to share code on the multiple systems and the users. Fair enough. Now, how does the version control system actually works? We talked about the collaborations, right? Collaboration means that if there are two developers and they are working on their own systems, they should be able to share the code among themselves. That's the meaning of the collaboration. How does that work? Let's try to understand this with the help of an example diagram that you see here. Let's say that this is the person 1 who is working on his laptop. This is the person 2 who is working on his own laptop, and this is the third person who is working on the laptop. Normally, any version control system has two parts to it, right? One is the local part. The local version control tool should be up and running in the local machine. So all these three people, workstation 1, workstation 2, workstation 3, all these people should have this version control tool running in their local system. And then when we have a remote server, this is again a remote server where again this version control system should be hosted. Now this remote server is always in connection with this local machines. So let's say there's a user 1. After making changes in the local copy, he stores that into the local repository. Repository is basically a term given to the place where you go and push your code or collect your code or have your code stored. And then since this local machine is connected to the remote, I go and push this code to the repository. So when you go and send your code from the local machine to the remote repository, that term is called as push. We'll go and talk about this push and the pull later on in detail, where we go and see with the help of command that how in the world of Git and GitHub we do the push and the pull. But for now, you just understand, when you try to send the code from your local to the remote, that's typically is called as push. And when you try to get the code back from the remote to your local machine, to your local laptop, that whole phenomena is called as a pull. So what I did, I'm a person 1, I pushed my code to the repository, and then other guy who is this, if this person has to take the code, I'll go and take this code back from the remote repo, and that will be called as the pull phenomena. And that's how all these people, multiple folks, in order to go and share and collaborate, they have to keep on pulling the code from the remote to fetch the code of the other people and pushing the code back to the remote server so that it is available for the other guys to use. So this is how typically the collaboration in the world of the Git and GitHub gets working. Now a few terms that we have talked about. The first one is the remote central master repository, right? Again, if I go and remind, so in the world of the version control, there are two things. One is me, who is working on my laptop. So there will be one version control system will be running on my local machine. This is called as local. And then if I want to make a backup of this code so that is accessible to the other people, it has to be available in public right? On the remote server, So this remote server where my code is residing is called as the remote central or the master repository. The one which I am doing on my local machine, that is called as a local Git repository. When I'm trying to send the code from my machine to this will be called as push. When I'm trying to get the code back from the remote server to my local machine, that will be called as pull. Then there's a concept called as branches. Just hold on for now, you don't have to put too much of brain, but there's something called as a branch. And the default branch is called as a master. And head is called as pointer to the current branch or the state of the code. Now hold on for these two terms. You don't have to think too much. What is master? What is head? Each of these we go and cover in details in the coming few minutes. Now, as I told you, version control system is a concept. And there are multiple players to do it. Just for example, if I go and talk about the toothpaste, there are different brands which provide the toothpaste in the market. For example, Colgate is one, Pepsodent is one. Similarly, version control system is a concept, and there are different companies which goes and implements it. But one of the companies which is the market leader, almost every company that I have worked for, I have always seen the Git being used, except the one which was Oracle. Git is one of the most widely used version control system implementer. And as you can see with some stats here, the market share of the Git right now is 89.46. Almost 90% of the market is being captured by the Git. Just like the Git, there are other solutions also. For example, Microsoft Azure DevOps Server, Tortoise SVN Subversion, and these are the other small players. But since 90% is being covered by the Git itself, it makes more sense for us to include Git in our project as well. So by now you would have understood that what is version control, why it is important for all of us in this course to master it, and why we are talking about the Git, because it's one of the biggest implementer of the version control system and it captures 90% of the market right now. Now let's try to go and talk about little around the history of the Git. So it's very interesting to know that the founder of the Git is same as who was the founder of the Linux as well. So Git has been founded by or created by Linus Torvalds, who was very popularly known for bringing and giving Linux to the world. Quite amazing, no? Let's move on further. So let's talk about quickly that what is the benefits of the Git. So these are all the bookish reasons. The one of the biggest reason for me to go and learn Git is that it's one of the most widely used version control system. And why it is widely used? There are certain advantages and reasons, right? Because Git is faster. Why faster? Because as I told you, when I go and make use of version control system, this Git could be installed on your local machine itself. This Git can be installed on your local machine itself. How to go and install Git? Don't worry about it. You will be given attach the steps to go and install Git on your operating system. So whether you have the Linux, whether you have a Windows, whether you have a MacBook, we have provided and attached the detailed steps of bringing Git on your local machine. So you just follow those steps to go and install Git on your local machines, whether it's Windows, Eclipse, whether it's a Windows, it's a Linux, or it's a Mac machine. Now since it is running on your local machine and installed locally, it is normally very fast. Right, so there is first advantage that it's faster as most of the operations are performed locally. Number two is that there's so many flexibility that you go and see as we make the progress and we talk about that how do we the version control is happening, the different stages, the different commands. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, enables the flexible version controls. Also, as a human, we are subjected and we are obliged to do the mistakes. Sometimes we want to go and commit something, we make some changes and we just realize that, hey, I want to go back. So Git allows you to revert your changes very seamlessly and we can usually go back to the previous state. Also, in the today's modern world of software development, it might happen that you have the people working in a distributed location. You have a distributed team geographically, right? They all are working in different time zones and different locations. Still, Git allows you that the teams of this nature can seamlessly integrate among each other. And last but not the least, it ensures that the integrity of the code and the conversions are all right, and for that it makes use of the hash values. Now all these values sounds a little theoretical, but as we make progress, I promise to you that as we make progress, we go and learn more around the Git, you will realize that why that's the reason, why it is the hot favorite version control system in the market. Now when we go and talk about the Git, we always talk about the two things, Git and the GitHub. And many of the times I have seen students, professionals, when they are early in their career, I have seen getting them confused. Are they these two things same? Are these two things different? Let me go and quickly talk about it. The short answer is no. What is Git and what is GitHub? Let's try to understand this. So typically, any version control system that you have, will have two parts. One part is called as a local and another part is called as a remote. Right? What does a local means? It means that if I'm a software developer, I will go and make changes on my laptop. So when I'm making changes in my laptop itself, I should have some kind of version control which is local here. So when you implement the version control on your local machine, that is called as a local version control. And then you would want that changes that you have done here should move to some remote server. Let's say that this is a remote server. Two reasons for the backup, and so that other people who are here, they can actually pull this data on their systems. Fair enough. So in the world of Git itself, right, when it comes about doing the version control system on the local machine, we make use of something called as a Git, which has to be installed. I'm again repeating, in this video we have not added the steps for the installation because it's very simple. If I go and install Git and show you people, I feel it's not the best respect of your time. But in order to make things simple and streamlined for you people, the steps how to install Git on your local machine, whether it's Windows, Mac or Linux, has been provided with screenshots, detailed steps, and please follow that to get started. The Git refers to the software, the open source tools which is available for you to go and install on your machine so that you can go and do the version control on the local systems. When it comes about the remote, so the GitHub is basically that remote server, a website, an application which allows you to go and create the remote repositories. How does it look like? Let's quickly go and see this remote GitHub. So this entire course, we're going to go and focus on these two parts. We're going to focus on the local Git and we're going to talk about the remote. This is more of like using a website. And here it is more of like using commands. Let me do a quick sneak peek of the GitHub. So if I go and open my Chrome here, right, this is how you go and I want to put my guest disk scribble, you have to just go in the browser and you need to go and type github.com. Okay, so this is the github.com and this is the landing page of the github.com. Fair enough. So github.com, you can think of more of like a repository where anyone who wants to put their files, code, anything, it could be done. So all the concept of the version control system, it all applies here. It's just that for that you don't have to write any commands. It's just a few clicks, the UI, the graphical user interface through which you can go and write the code. So going ahead in this course, we'll be talking about this remote server, which is called as GitHub, and the local installation of the Git, which help us to manage the code locally. So this entire course, if I do and quickly summarize this, what we need to do and master here. So what we need to master here is that we have to understand that what are the different commands through which you go and do the version control in the local, and for that we need to go and learn the Git commands. Then we also need to go and say that during the GitHub, if I go and talk about the remote, which is the GitHub, how do you make account here? How do you make the repositories here? Right? All these things. So this could be, let's say, if the order I go and talk about this, then I go and talk about this, and the last but not the least is how do we make this connection? How do we make this connections? This will be the third part. Anyone who is able to do all these three things is more than enough for you to get started in the professional world for this course and get started in your coding journey. Fair enough? So let's go ahead and talk about each of these steps in a hands-on manner. We'll stop here, sir. So now since we have talked about the GitHub, it's just not that the GitHub is the only player. There are other market competition to the GitHub, which is the online remote repository. We have something called as Bitbucket. Mostly in my freelancing gig that I have done in the past, Bitbucket I have preferred there. There's something called as a GitLab, there's something called as a SourceForge. So all these three, most of the cloud providers also have the alternatives to the GitHub. But still, most of the people, including us in this course, we're gonna stick with GitHub. So now let's talk a little bit around the GitHub. How does it works? What all things that we need to do? And then we go back to our Git local, we'll run all the commands and then come back again to the GitHub and do that integration. So let's quickly go to the GitHub. So if I go and open my github.com, this is how it looks like. Now to get started on a GitHub is pretty simple. Just like any other website, how you would go yourself and register on LinkedIn, Instagram, that's how you have to go and register yourself on the GitHub as well. So in the case if you don't have an account and if you're doing it for the first time, click on the sign up. Right, and that's how it says. Let's say that I go and put my email ID, and I click on the continue. Now if you can see here, GitHub is smart and it's saying that the email ID that I'm using, if you see here, it is saying that the email ID which I have used is already associated with an account. It means that because I already have a GitHub account. So what I need to do is that I need to go and sign in. So in the case if you don't have, it will ask you for the prompts. Let's say that if I go and change this, right, if I go back and I click on the sign up again and write another email ID, let's say that, I go and say that vishwa@amods.ai and I click on the continue. Then it will go and ask me that what is the password. I go and say something called as continue, needs a number in a lowercase. I go and pass and then I go and continue, enter the username. Let me go and call it Vish 0007 and click on the continue. It's not available. I go and put 127. I click on this. Whether I would like to go and get the notification email from the GitHub or not, I don't go and click it. I click on the continue and then I'll have to go and verify. So typically a normal step, that is how you go and create it. I am not going to go and do that in details. I already have a GitHub account. So what I need to do is that I go and click on the sign in and here I go and provide my email ID. And let me go and provide my password. Click on the sign in. I have got my device verification code. I will just go back to that screen and I'll come back. So I have got this verification code. I go and put it here and see that my landing page has come up. Fair enough. So this is how the landing page of the GitHub looks like. Multiple other codes. I have not used my GitHub for a long time. I have been mostly experimenting on the other GitHub repo. This is an old GitHub account that I have. I'm using this for the demo purpose in this course. Now the important section here on this GitHub is typically, let me go and increase the font of this so that it's easy for you people to go and, this is my section. If you can see, it's my phone, profile pic here. When I go and click on this, you go and see different things. Set status is more of like a, what status that you would like to go and put, more of like a WhatsApp status itself. Now, since we are getting started, I don't want to tell you all the things about the GitHub here itself. Otherwise, it will be overwhelming. So we'll start with few things and we'll try to learn it as we make progress in the course. On a high level, your profile is like any other website application where it will have your profile information. Then repository. Now this is an important term called as a repository. So in this world of the Git and GitHub, every time boss you are writing any project and that project involves files, folders, this whole project has to be kept inside some kind of a folder or a bucket which will have some kind of a logical name. So this folder or the bucket where the entire project is metadata, code files, all the asset files, everything goes and sits there, that is called as a repository. What it means, if I have to start doing anything on a GitHub, the very first thing that I need to do is that I'll have to go and create a repository. Create a repository. Repository is basically you go and create a house, a landing area, a home for the code that you're going to write, the project that you're going to build. And once you have created a repository, inside this you can keep on adding files, folders, everything which is needed for you to go and run the projects. Fair enough. So as of now, for us, what is important is that we should go and know that how do we go and create a repository. So how do I go and create a repository? I go and close on this. Now you have two options. Either you go and click on this green icon that is showing up here, which is called as new, or you go and click on this plus icon. Here also, if you go and click, it will go and create a new repository. You come here. Or else if you go and click on this icon and click on the new repository, it will help you go and create a new repository like this. Fair enough. So here let me go and create a new repository. So let me go and see that a demo. Let me go and call this as a demo repo. And we'll try to see that if it is available. Demo repo is available. So I have able to create it. Now, whenever you're creating a repository, it's always a good practice that you should go and talk about what this project is all about. But if you don't do it, no one will complain. That's an optional feature. I go and write that this is a demo repo used for the demonstration purpose. Fair enough. Now, whenever you're going to create any kind of repository, you have the two options, boss. Either you can go and do it in the private mode, or you can do it in the public mode. Private mode means that when you create a repo and you make it private, no one in the internet, no one who has an account of a GitHub will be able to see that what you have created. It will be all yours. And if you selectively want few of your team members to come and collaborate in that, that is possible. Public means that anyone on the internet, anyone who has the access to the GitHub, they should be able to go and see all your code and content. Now, let me tell you a small trivia fact. I think you all would have used ChatGPT and you would have heard that ChatGPT has been trained on the public data. So one of the sources of the learning of the code of ChatGPT is again all these public GitHub repositories. All thanks to all the kind people who go and write code and put it in public. That helps these LLMs to get trained. Coming back. Now, since we have nothing much to hide, as of now, we'll try to keep it public so that you people can also have the access to this repo that we are creating as of now. Now, what we need to do next is, once we have done it, let's try to move, once we have done this, let's try to move down. Now, here comes another important concept called as a README file. So, every repo you are writing some code. Now, not everyone will be technical. Let's say that you have written some complex code and you want the steps that he or she should be aware to execute your code. You go and write the description in the README file. Now, again, it's an option. As of now, we'll not use it, but as we make progress over our entire course, we'll see that when we go and build the projects, we'll go and add a README file. As of now, I don't go and do anything here. Then we have a concept called as a git ignore. Now, for now, git ignore, you should go and ignore as the name itself says, but again, we'll cover it before we close this video. We're going to talk about that, what this git ignore file is. We'll come back again here. As of now, you can go and remove this. License, since we want to do it for a public learning, I don't want to go into the intricacies of license. I'm not adding here. Let's say that you're trying to create some code which you feel is something which is great, which you feel that you should have a ownership of, so that no competition can go and reuse that code. You go and add this license agreement so that anyone who is willing to use that code, you should read that and then he should pay you the proper money and the copyright charges, the license charges, and then go and make use of the code. Once you have added all these things, the next step is that you go and click on the create repository. What you do is that you need to go and click on the create repository. As soon as I go and do, if you see here the demo repo has been created. What is the public URL of this demo repo? This is github.com. This is the domain, followed by my name. This is my GitHub profile name, which is Vishwa07dev. And then it is being followed by the repo which we have created, which is the demo repo. Now, these days GitHub is coming with the GitHub Copilot. Now, We can talk about the GitHub Copilot sometime later on, but for this course and for this video, I think we can ignore that. Add collaborators to the repositories. Typically, let's say that I have a repo and I am the owner. Since I am the owner, I can make changes in this repo. I'm allowed to do it. But let's say that I don't want only me to be the owner of it. I would like the others people to also contribute. So I can go and add my friends to also be a collaborator here, so that when they make changes, they can actually go and make the changes in this repo. So you can go and invite people who have a GitHub account and they could be the collaborators to this account. Fair enough? Am I clear? Now, moving down, if I go and try to see that what are the other things which is here. Now the remaining part of the code that you see here, I told you some time back that in this entire course, you will have your local setup done in which your machine will be running Git software, and then you will have something called as a GitHub, which is a remote server. Right? So you need to know how to go and create a repository here, which we have already done it. Now the more intricacies into it, that how we go and add files, how do we commit, what are the branches, we'll come back again to the GitHub and try to understand all those things. Later on, we'll go and see that how do we go and do all things on the local machines. And then finally, the integration part of it, how the local is connected to the remote. All these steps are written here, boss. These are the steps which is written here. Give me some time. We'll go and talk about the Git local now. And when we come back, we will see that what these lines means. And then after a few minutes and hours, all of these will start making sense. So I think we're all set now. We have understood Git, GitHub small demo we have seen. Now it's time to go to the local. The Git that we have installed, let's see if it is working all great. Run some commands, see the version control in action, and once it is done, we'll come back here and see that how the local can be connected to the remote. So now since we have understood a basic around that what version control is, what Git is, and we talked about the GitHub also, it's time to get in action that how the GitHub local works. What are the different steps, the different commands that you need to master to make the best use of the Git. So let's quickly get started. So to get started on the Git local, I'll again read all the pictures so that you guys are all clear. Let's say that if I have to go and make use of version control tool, right, I have to do at the two different levels. The very first thing that I need to do is that on my laptop, whether it's a Windows machine, whether it's a Mac OS, or it is the Linux version, what you need to do is that you have to go and install Git on your machine if it is not already there, right? Installing Git. Now, I'm not telling you the steps to install the Git here in the video because I feel it's pretty simple and straight. You just go and put a Google search how to install Git on Windows or Mac or Linux and I'll get the answer. But for your quick help, as an attachment, we would have provided the steps in details, the links, the commands, everything which is needed to get you started with the Git. So I hope if you have not done it, pause the video right now, make sure that the Git is installed on your local machine. Once it is done, then what all thing happens here, we are going to do in a hands-on manner as of now. There is another part of the Git which is the remote. Which is the remote version, we go and call it as GitHub, right? It is called as the GitHub. So we'll again come back. We saw that already, that how do we go and create repository in the world of the GitHub, but more actions around that will come very soon. So first we'll go and do master the local Git, then we go and talk a little back around the remote, and then we'll see that how these two could be connected. And that's how we will be done with all the concept which is needed for us to excel in this course as far as Git is concerned, and not only here but anywhere else, be it you are doing a freelancing, you are doing the internship, you are doing a job in a company, that also helps there. So let's quickly get started. So I'm assuming that you have already done the Git install. Once Git is installed, you have to go and open your terminal, right? In the Windows, you can open the PowerShell or the command prompt. Since I'm using Mac to record this course, I'll be opening my terminal. So if you can see here, I have just opened my terminal. I'll just increase the font here. The Mac OS terminals are very much similar to the Linux one. So all the commands that I go and make use of here will equally work on the Linux. It might not work, but if you have opened the Git bash, when you go and install Git in the Windows, you get a terminal called as Git bash. Typically all the commands which I run here should work there as well. So very first thing, I want to go and make a check that is Git installed on my system. A very crude way of doing it would be that I just simply go and type git. If git is installed, my system should recognize this keyword. So when I go and enter this, I see that a lot of helper text is coming up. Git, how I should go and make use of. Right, so one of the users just tries to say that you can use -v to get the version of the git. So for example, in this system, I want to go and check what is the version of my git. I go and say git -v, and you can see here, let me go and open my desk scribble, and you can see here that git version which is installed in my local machine, which is being given by git -v, is 2.39.3. so this is the git version which is available, my dear friends. Fair enough? Makes sense? Cool. So now since I have the git version done, the git is already installed in my system. The very first thing that we need to do is that we need to go and configure git. Now what is the meaning of the configuring the git? So normally with the git, what I'm trying to do, sir? I'm trying to do the version control. And when I'm trying to do the version control, I told you it also helps you collect the metadata. Metadata around who did the change. What was the email ID of that person? What was the username of the person? What was the time when it was done? So for the git to know and collect this metadata, we have to go and provide certain information that who is the owner of this git command, who is running it. Right? So there are several basic setups. For example, setting your username, setting your email. These are one of the basic things that you should definitely set up before you get started with the git. Otherwise, git will not get to know that who was the person who committed something, who was the person who has saved this file, who was the person who made the last modification. And if you want to go and track those metadata, I have to go and find the unique username and email that I have to record for this git account. How do we do it? Let's try to see that. So I'll just go and clear my screen. If I'm the Linux terminal and I want to clear this up, and also in the git bash, you can just type clear, and then my whole terminal is clean. What I go and do, I go and say that git config user.name. So this command git config user.name, when I go and enter, it will go and tell me what is the username. Since in this machine I have already set my git user as Vishwa, so you can see that the git config username is being set as the Vishwa itself. If you want, you can always go and change this to set any name. For example, I can go and change this to git config user.name equals to, we're going to call this Karina. Now when I go and do this, this is saying that it is not a git repository. I'm not in a git directory, right? So in order to run this command, when I have to go and change the username, I have to go and provide the scope. So whenever I'm changing this, I'll go and say that, okay, whatever changes that I'm trying to do affect all the users of the git. So what I need to only do is that I just have to go and add in this command. I'll just put here git config, and I go and say that -- global, and I say that username is Karina. Now again, if I go and say that git config user.name, sorry, there's a typo. I see the name is coming as Karina, right? So to all of you people who's watching this, make sure that you have opened your laptop. You're trying to write the command with myself. That way you'll be able to make the best out of this session. Now let me revert back. I don't want to be recorded as Karina. All my commands, I want to put it on my name. So I go and again say that git config -- global, and then it is user.name, and then the value should be Vishwa. And now again, if I go and say the git config user.name, it should be Vishwa. Same way, we have to also go and set the email. So I can go and set it git config -- global, and I can go and say user.email, and then I go and provide the email address. For example, say knKvish@gmail.com. And now if I go and do that git config, and I go and say the user.email, the value is kankvish@gmail.com. The value is kankvish@gmail.com, boss. This is the outcome. So this is how the basic setup that we go and do. Fair enough. Now coming again, when I talked about the git, what did the git will do? The git will help me do the version control. Git will help in version control. So let's try to see this in the action. What does that mean? So for example, the current situation here is that I am on my Mac and I have installed Git. Fair enough. Now just installing Git is not enough, boss. Just for example, let's say that you're feeling very hot, and what you do is that you go and bring AC in your house. Now just bringing AC in the house fully packed, you have not opened it, you have not started it, it will not start cooling. Just like that, when I have installed Git on my machine, laptop right now, just bringing it, installing it will not get the work done. I'll have to do the setup of the Git in my project. I have to go and tell Git, boss, you have been introduced now, you haven't done setup. You get started with this. How do we do it? Let's quickly start. So for this, what we're going to do is that the very first thing that we need to do is that we need to go and find a folder. Inside that folder, we go and create some kind of project folder. And then inside this, we go and creating the files. For example, file1.txt, file2.txt. Like this, we'll keep on creating the files. And what I need to do is that I need to go and tell Git that, friend, now this is the folder which you need to start doing the version control. Now, how does we tell the Git to do this? This is what we're going to understand now quickly. First of all, I need to go and create the folder. So let me go and open my Finder folder. Right here it is. I go to my work location, as you can see here. I'll go to the Git ground, and then let me go and create a new folder here. Right. Let me put it here. Git ground. Let me go and create a new folder here, and let me go and call this Git name. Let me go and call it as maybe learning Git. Fair enough. So this is the folder. And then I have to go inside this folder. So I go and open my terminal. I'm inside this Git ground. Now in the Linux world, if I have to go and to know that which location I am, then I can go and say the pwd. The pwd stands for the present working directory. The pwd here means for the present working directory. As you can see, that is a present working directory. And this is the entire location, right? User Vishwa work Git ground. Now I have to go inside. I need to see what are the current files inside that. So what for that? Typically I go and run a command call as ls, and then I say that I have that these. So I have to go inside this folder call as a learning Git. So I go and say that cd learning Git. Fair enough. And then I'm here. I'm inside this folder location. Boss, I'm inside the users. Inside user there's a Vishwa folder, inside Vishwa there's a work folder, inside work there's a Git ground, and then we have the learning Git folder. Now, in order to know if it is a Git is, as I told you, the Git is installed on my local machine. On my laptop, the Git is there, I know that. But in that, I'm inside this folder location here. I'm here right now at the learning Git location. I want to check if Git is actually doing the observations for this folder or not. I want to check what is Git doing here. So one of the most commonly used command which you will use again and again and again to understand what your project status is, you use a command called as git status. So every command that you run in the Git will always be prefixed with the keyword called as git, followed by what you want to know. You want to know the status, so you go and say that git status. As soon as we go and pass this call as git status, and you can read here, right, this is my git status. And as soon as I go and read it, it's saying fatal, not a Git repository or any of the parent directories. What does it mean? It means that, just like example which I gave you, you have brought the AC in the house, but unless until you unbox it, put that into the electric cable and start running it, it will not start cooling the house. Same thing is here. The Git is installed on your local machine, but you have not told Git that, boss, this is my folder which is for the project, and I want you to start tracking it. So to start tracking it, or to make any project under the supervision of Git which you want to be version controlled, a next important command which you run only once in the very beginning, whenever you have to initialize a project, you go and make use of it, that is called as git init command. You'll see a pattern that almost everything that we go and run in the world of the Git is always prefixed with the keyword. So I'm going to say that I want to initialize this project folder, so I go and say that git init. as soon as I ran this git init command, right, as soon as I ran this git init command, you can see here I have got this initialize empty git repository in this specific location. Fair. Initialized empty git repository in this specific location. So now this folder is now being monitored by the git. Git is saying that, okay boss, you have put me for the work, I know now what have to be done, and I'm now looking this folder which is learning it. So now going ahead, everything that you go and do, I'll keep track of. So now again, if I go and run this, our most helpful command, which is git status. If I go and run this command git status, so what it is saying now, it is saying that I am on the branch main and no commits has yet happened. No commits has yet happened. Now, let me go back and talk about. So in the world of git sir, let's say that I have a project folder, right? And I have asked git to start looking over it. And this I did by using the command called as git init. Now, every time I go and create a file, let's say that I go and create file1.txt. As soon as you go and do this, Git will start observing it. Git will start observing it. So for example, right now if I go to my terminal and I go and just remember on branch, it is saying on branch main, we'll talk about the branch in a while, and it's saying no commits yet. Let's try to see if I go and create a new file. So in the Linux world or the Mac world, if I have to go and create a file, I can make use of VI. You can also feel free to use any text editor to do so. You go in that folder and save a text file there. So I'm using a VI command, VI, and then I'm calling the file name, for example, file1.txt. So it will open a VI editor, as you can see here. If you want to know a little bit of a VI editor, I'll suggest do a little Google search. You will understand the detailed intricacies of it. The basic command I'll be telling you right now. So if I have to insert anything in this, I have to type I. So right now, if you see here, if I go and press any button, I'll not be able to type. So I have to insert anything. I have to start with the keyword called as I. So as soon as I go and put I, I'm ready to insert. As you can see that the mode is now insert. Now I can type, well, hello, students. Once I have written this, I want to write this content. I want to save this content. So what I'll do is that on my keyboard, I will go and type. Let me go and provide you the command which I'm going to type on my keyboard. So first of all, I'm going to type escape button, right? And that is followed by semicolon WQ. When I go and do this, this means that I write and quit here. Right, so I want to go and save this. So what I'll do here is that I can go and type escape. As soon as I find escape, you see the insert button is gone, and then I go and type WQ, and then I enter exclamatory sign, and then I click on the hit. I'm gonna hit the enter button now. As soon as I'm done, I have come out of this file called as vi file1.txt file. I'm again repeating so that it gets used to you. Whenever you have to create any file or you have to edit any file, you have to start with the keyword called as vi. So I go and write vi followed by the file name. When you click this, it will go and open a VI terminal. Right now, it is you cannot edit this file. It's unedited mode it is right now. So if I have to go and insert anything, I go and type here I. Just keep a focus I here itself. When I go and type I, it becomes in the insert mode. Now I can say that hello students. I can go and actually go and say hello students again. Now if I want to go and save this, first to come out of the insert mode, I have to go and click on the escape button on your keyboard. So when I click on the escape, the insert is gone. Then I go and type semicolon WQ and hit enter. As soon as I'm done, I'm done with this file. Now the another important Linux command which I want you people to know, and you can actually go to the location, open the file also. But if you want to see it through the terminal itself, you can use a command called as cat. So when you go and say that cat and followed by the file name, it will display you the content of the file. So cat followed by the file name, which is the file1.txt. As you can see here, right, cat file1.txt. What is the content of this? The content of this is hello student again. Fair? Okay. So what we have done inside my folder called as learning it, I have created another file called as file1.txt. How do I know the location of the files? Right now, if I go and do the ls, you will see that there is a file called as file1.txt. that got created. One more thing, whenever you make any project folder GitHub repo where you want Git to do the version controlling, one hidden folder is also added. And if I have to know what is the hidden folder in the Linux world, I can simply go and say the ls, and these all commands you can run on the git bash ls -a. So if you see here, apart from file1.txt, I have another folder which is called as .git, which start with this dot point, right, which indicates that this is a private folder. So this folder will have all the context, the metadata, the code, the logic, everything which is needed to do the version control in this project location. So every time you go and do the git init boss, it result in the creation of .git file which have all the specs and everything which is needed for the version controlling of this function. So I've created this file, Git is right now observing it. Let's try to see what the Git has to say now. So at this point of time, if I go into the clear, I know that I have a file called as file1.txt. Let's see that what Git has to tell now. So Git says that git status, hit enter. So Git is again saying something which is common to the previous one, that it is on the branch main. What is a branch? We'll talk about that in a while. You can ignore that of now. It is saying that you have not committed anything, that's okay. But it is now saying that boss in this folder, let's say that this is Git. Git is telling me that boss in this folder learning Git, there is a file called as file1.txt. And I'm just seeing it, I'm telling you it is there. But we are not tracking this yet. This is still untracked or unstaged. So this stage is called as typically the untracked or unstaged. So normally in the world of the Git projects, any file will have the following three states, boss. State 1 is when you go and create it, which is untracked, or you also go and call it as unstaged. There's a state 2 which is called as a tracked, and you can also go and call it that as a staged. And the step 3 is when you actually go and commit it. And this is the stage 3. So you have a stage 1, you have the stage 2, and you also have the stage 3, which is the commit stage. Fair enough. So at this stage we are in the untracked stage. So if I have to move this file 1 to the stage, let's try to see what we can do. But before we doing that, let's try to create one more file. So right now I have only one file, so saying file1.txt. If I go and create another file calling file1, file2.txt, and I put here again something like this, hello world this time. And again do the git status. I have now two files. One is the file1.txt, another is file2.txt. Correct? I have file1.txt, I have file2.txt. And both of them are right now untracked. So Git is telling me, I am seeing it, boss, because you have asked me to, but you have still not given me in my control. I am still not able to track it because you have not told me to do it, or you have not staging it because you have not asked me to do it. So the way to track or the stage any file, you use a command called as a git add. Right? You can use a command called as a git add. For example, it says I want to bring file1.txt into the staging context. I go and say that git add, and then I go and provide the file name. So I'll go and say that git add file name, which is file1.txt. No error means that the program has been executed successfully. If I again do the git status, I will see that for file1.txt it is showing in green, right? This is showing in the green because it is staged now and it could be committed. So once a file is staged, if you want that change to be finalized, if you want that I want to create a version out of that change, you have to go and commit it, right? So for committing it has to be staged first. So this file is done, but this file 2 is still not staged, it's still in the initial untracked state, and it is in red, and Git is telling you that you should go and track it up. Now let's say that I want to go back, let's say that is file1.txt, I want to go back to the previous step, I want to go back to the previous step, I want to go and unstage this. How can I do it? Again, for unstaging it, I already have a command which is here. I can use this to go back to the previous step. So I can go and simply go and type the command called as git rm minus minus cached, and then I go and say that file1.txt. And again, if I go and do that git status, now I again go back to the previous state where both the files, file1 and file2, both are being said that they both are untracked. Now if I want to go and track both of them, I have another option. I can go and say that git add, and then I go and pass file1.txt, and then I go and say that file2.txt. Again, no error, it means that it has been successfully executed. If I want to go and see what happened, I can go and say that git status, and I see that both of them are green and they are ready to be committed. And if I have to unstage, I can go and make use of this command. Let's see that how we can do that. So let me go and unstage that, multiple files at a time. So I'll go and type here git rm minus minus cached, and then I go and pass file1.txt, and then I have file2.txt. And now if I go and do the git status, it will be again back to the square one, the place where we were, file1.txt and file2.txt. Now another shortcut, let's say that you have multiple files, you don't have one or two or three, or you have, let's say, 10 files, 20 files, many number of files, where writing each of the file name individually might be tricky, and you want all of them to be staged or all of them to be tracked. For that, I go and make use of a command called as a git add, and I go and say the dot. And now if I go into the git status, you'll find that everything has now been staged. Everything now has been staged. Fair enough. So we have understood so far. If I quickly remember, every time you go and play with a file, and the very beginning it will be in the untracked stage. Now if you want the git to be tracking this, then you have to go and convert that into, you have to stage it, and you do it with a command called as a git add command. You can go and pass dot if you want to go and stage all the files together, or you can go and provide the files names. Once you're done with the staging, you have two steps. One thing is that either you can go back, or you should go and commit this change, so that a new commit ID is appended to this change, and you are able to bring a new version out of that. So far we have seen how do we stage things. Next thing is that how do we go and commit a given code that we have written. So now since we have staged our files, it is all set now to commit it. So we have to explicitly say to the git that, boss, this is the changes that we have staged, we have tested, and this is what I want to go and add and commit to get a newer version. Right? We know that version control main tool is to go and have the versions. For example, I'm working on a project, and the project is a different time of the time. That could be version 1. Right? Here I could have the version 1, then I have the version 2, have version 3. So all the different 3 versions that you go and see here is nothing but the commits, which goes and keeps a timestamp and a proper metadata around that what changes has went inside this specific version of the commit. How do I do it? I do it with the command called as git commit. So I go and use this command. Let me go and do the clear, and I go and say that git status. When I go in the git status, I have the 2 files, file1.txt, file2.txt, which is ready to be committed. It is a staged state, and to commit this, I go and say that git commit. And then when you're committing, you're also supposed to put some comments that what is the reason, what is going inside. That I go and provide with the help of the -m option. I go and say that this is my first commit. It's always a good practice to go and provide the description of the commit, because later on someone else wants to understand that what change went inside in that commit. They should be able to decipher that easily. So when I go and click on this, I see some output. What is that output? It is saying that this is my first commit, blah 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 blah. 2 files has been changed, 2 insertions has been done, and the commit is done. At this point of the time, if you remember previously when I did the git status, it was saying that changes has to be committed. Now if I go and do the git status, click enter, then it is saying that on branch main, nothing to commit, working tree clean. So now going ahead, one step that you people have to remember always is that every time, what are the steps? Let me quickly go and write it down here. So if you have to deal with the git in the local, at the very beginning, the number 1 step that you will have to do is that, so if you have to go and deal with the git in the local on your laptop, the very beginning what you will have to do, you will have to do the git init. It initializes the whole repository, the Git repository. It happens only once. You have to run this only once. What it will do, it will go and create a hidden file folder called as git.git folder. Fair. This is done. Now once it is done, then the next step is that every time you go and create a file, the file will be initially untracked. You have to first stage this file or track this file, for which you will have to go and add git add. When you go and put dot file, it means that all the file which is untracked will be staged. And then finally you have to go and commit it. And for that you use a command called as git commit -m, and then you go and provide that description. So this is how typically the Git whole process, right? Untracked file and then staging and then committing, all these things happens, and it's going to happen again and again. You will have to do a lot many times and you'll get habituated to it. So now since we have done this, let me go back to my terminal. Let me go and create one more file. So I have two files, file1, file2.txt. Let me go and create something called as file3.txt. And here I go and say that I type I to insert, and then I go and say hello all aimers. Right? I go and say the hello all aimers. Fair enough. So I have the third file. Again, if I go and do that, get status, it's showing the empty. So this whole process, when you go and add a new file, it will be untracked. You have to go and add it. You go and say the git add dot. It will go and add all the track file. If I again go and do the git status, it is in green now. It is ready to be committed. And if I have to go and commit, I go and say that git commit -m, and I go and say that second commit. Fair enough. So this is how I go and commit the things. Now once I've done all these things, right? I know that I have made the multiple version, I have done the multiple commits. As a user, I would like to go and know sometimes that there are how many commits. I would like to go and know there are how many commits so far. So if I have to go and see the log trace that how many commit has happened in the past, I can go and make use of the command called as a git log. I can go and make use of the command called as a git log. So if I go and type this git log here, this gives you the entire information that what has been the whole the trace, that how the changes has been committed. If you see here, it is saying that one of the commit was this, which is the commit ID. It is saying it was done by the Vishwa, whose email ID is this one. It was done on the Friday, September 6th at 4:39 p.m. And the git commit was my first commit. And then I have another commit which was happened on the Friday, September 6th, and this was the second commit. So the git log command tells us in detail all the commits which has happened in the past. Now this git log command could be customized a little, right? Let's say that I want to know the last one git command, right? So I can go and give it through the options. So I can go and call it here git, go and call it as git log, and I can say -n, and I pass 1. So when I go and do this log -n1, it will also only go and tell me the last n. If I go and pass -2, it will give me the last 2. If I go and pass 10, it will only get me the 2 because I don't have the 10 commits yet. Similarly, more customization. For example, I want to go and only see the commits done by the user called as Vishwa, right? So how do I do it? If I have to go and do that, then I'll have to go and say that git log, and then I go and pass this COMMITTER equals to, and I go and say that Vishwa. So when I go and do this git log minus committer Vishwa, then I have this one, and I have this one. Fair enough. So this is how we go and do the git log. Now one thing that I want to say, that if I want to go and see that what happened inside this command among this commit, so for that I can go and check. I can use a command called as git show, and I can use this commit ID. So when I go and do this command called git show, and I go and provide the commit ID here itself, I go and see the details what happened inside this specific commit ID. So the author was Vishwa Mohan. This is the time. This is the git command, right? And what happened was that we go and added this file3.txt, and in that I go and added this text called as hello all aimers. So everything which happened, all things which got added as a part of this commit, you go and see that. right? So with this, we have understood how do you initialize a Git, how do you go and stage something, how do you unstage something, how do you commit, how do you see the list of the commit history using the git log command, and also if it's spinning any specific commit ID you have, you can go and check the details of it using the command git show followed by the commit ID. Fair enough. So till now we have understood multiple stuffs. Now let's try to move on. So all the things that we have done so far, which is adding to the staging area and then committing, we can go and represent that in the demo diagram which you see here, right? So typically when you go and start working with any files, you typically go and add those to the staging area and then to finally commit to the Git directly, and later on in the part when we see that how we can go and push it to the remote repository. But before we move there, we come to a concept called as a branching in Git. What is the meaning of the branching and why we need to go and master it? Let's try to understand with the help of a scenario itself. Let's say that I'm the founder of Amers and I'm working on the Amers website. So I have amers.ai. Now this amers.ai is right now running in production, right? And in the production, you know that if it is running, then there should be some code which will be running here. Fair. Now at this point of time, I want to go and add new features into the amers.ai code. I want to go and add new features in the amers.ai code. So one option that I have is that I go and stop this application, take this code out, and make changes in the same code. And once the changes are done, then I go and deploy it again. And then my application amers.ai goes up and it's ready to to provide valuable information to all the students again. And in this process, there will be some time, delta t time, when the application is down. Do you guys think this is a right approach? I think most of you will say that no, it's not, because in the case if you have to bring your application down for making the code changes, adding new functionality, is not a good approach, because it might take you days to build a new feature. Until then your application will be down. That's not good. So in order to solve this problem, these kind of the problems, any version control system, they have come up with the concept called as a branch. What is a branch? Branch is basically the copy of your code, copy of the main code, typically on which the developer works. By default, in the very beginning, you have a very basic. So for example, if I go and open my terminal, right, and I go and do the git status, you see that I'm seeing on the branch main. In the very beginning, when you go and initialize any git repo, all the code that you go and write, they all are given a logical grouping, logical name, which is called as a main. Everything is called that they are on a logical group or logical tag called as a main, and we go and call it as a branch. Right? So this would look something like this. Let's say that this is the main branch. This is version 1, then you move to the version 2, then you move to the version 3, then you move to the version 4, and this whole thing, this whole path will be called as, this is a branch, and the name of this branch is main branch. Name of this branch is the main branch. V1, V2, V3, V4, and this is called as the main branch. Very nice, awesome, very cool. Now let's say that there are two developers, right? Developer 1 and there's a developer 2. Both of them are working on two different set of the features, and two different set of the features are impacting the similar files. So if they both work on the same file here and same file here, whatever the changes that he wants to do and whatever the changes this person 2 wants to do, they might override, their changes might override. So what could be a better strategy in that case? A better strategy in that case is that, let's say that this is how my right? This is a commit 1 which happened on the version 1, commit 2, commit 3, commit 4, commit 5, commit 6, and this is my branch called as a main. And let's say that I am a person who wants to work on a different set of the features. So what I can do is that, and then I'm interested only on the code base which was after C5. So I can cut out the another branch from here and make the changes into this, and I go and call it as some another branch called as branch, another branch 1. Another person who is working on another feature can take the branch out from here and work on another branch called as B3. So this branching strategies allows the multiple users to work on the same code base without interfering with each other's daily existence of the code itself. In the very beginning, you have just one branch, right? And that is the main branch that you see here. Now, at any moment of time, if you want to know that what are the different branches that I have, we can use a make use of command called as a git branch. So if I go and open my terminal, and let me clear this up. If I want to know that how many branches are there right now, so what I can do, I can go and say that git, and I go and use a command called as git branch. As of now, I only have one branch called as a main. Star mark indicate that I'm also using this branch. I'm on this branch. This indicate that I'm on this branch called as main, and the star means that I'm also using this branch. I'm also using this branch. Fair enough. So now this is one branch. Let's say that I want to create a new branch. How I go and do it? So for creating a branch, I go and say the git branch. I use a command called as a git branch, and I go and call it as a new branch. This command called as git branch followed by a name creates a new branch of the name new branch. So now if I go and again do the git branch, I'll see that there are two branches now, main and the new branch. Main and the new branch. So this is how I go and list all the branches. This is how I go and create a branch. And if I have to go and delete a branch, I can use this command called as git branch minus D, and I go and call it as new branch. So now if I can do the git branch, you will find that I have only main, right? So we have very quickly seen few things. Git branch will go and tell you the list of all the branches. Git branch new branch will go and create a new branch. Git branch minus D option, this minus D option that you go and see, that will go and delete the branch. So it is saying that deleted branch, new branch 399A96. So this got deleted. And now I'm only left with the branch called as a main branch, and it is also being highlighted with the star. Fair? Am I clear? Now the question which might be coming to your mind here is that let's go and create another branch. Let me go and create another branch called as git branch B2, and I go and do the git branch. Right, I have a B2 and I have main. Right, this is B2 and this is main. I'm inside this main branch. Now if I want to go to the B2 branch, right now if I go and see that ls, I see there are 3 files. How do I go and take a control of the B2 branch? How do I write in the B2 branch so that the changes that I do in the B2 branch is not being done in the main branch? How can I do it? For doing that, you make use of a command called as a checkout. For doing that, you go and make use of a command called as checkout. So you go and say that git checkout, you put here git checkout, and you go and put the file branch name, which is B2. As soon as I do it, you can see a text which is come up, which is that switch to the branch B2. Now at this point of time, if I again do the git status, I am saying on branch 2, nothing to commit, working tree clean. Now I created B2 when I am on the, if I go and do this ls here, I still see these 3 files. Why? Because I created B2. First of all, my main branch was there. See, first of all, my main branch was there. And at this point of time, I created B2 from the main branch. So B2 will have everything which main has. And now anything which I do in this B2 branch will not go to the main. For example, in this, if I again go and add another file called as vi file 4.txt, and inside that I go and insert something like this, some random data, and I go and do this git add git commit minus m random text, right? And if I see here in this file, when I am in this branch, which branch I am, if I go and put that git branch, you will see that I'm right now on the B2 branch, and in the B2 branch I have these four files. I have file 1.txt, file 2.txt, file 3, file 4, right? These are the 4 files. But if I again go back to the main branch, which I can go and do with the help of git checkout. So git checkout helps me to swap between the branches. So git checkout, and I go to the main. And now if I go into the ls, I will only have the 3 files. Right? Inside the main branch, I have switched to the main branch. Inside the main branch, I only have 3 files, file 1, file 2, file 3. And inside the B1, right? Inside the B1, I have how many files? File 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. So whatever changes that you do inside a branch, it always stays inside it unless until you decide to move it to the another branch. So branch allows you some kind of isolation where each developers can actually work the code on their own. So normally what happens is that in a company is how it works. Let me explain you. So in the company, there will be one main branch, which means let's say go and call this a main branch. And then for each developer, let's say developer 1, developer 2, developer 3, based on what feature they are working, they might create their own branches. And these are called as the feature branches. So all these people, let's say they are working in the branch 1, branch 2, branch 3, each of them are independent of each other. So any changes which this guy is making in his own branch does not impact others. Whatever he does not impact others. Whatever he does not impacts another. And once they are done, typically they will try to merge this code back to the main. This guy will also try to merge this code back to the main code base. Merge it. How the merge happens, we'll see that as of now. But as till now, we have seen few important things. We can go and create branch. When you go and say that git branch, it will go and list me all the branches. When I go and say that git branch, and we go and provide the name, it will go and create a branch with this name. And how do I go and change to a branch? I go and say that git checkout, and then you go and provide the name of the branch. It will go and take you to that branch. Now let me tell you one more shortcut. If I go to my terminal, let's say my use cases, I also want to change my branch and also create at the same time. So for doing that, you have option of saying git checkout minus b, and then you go and provide the branch name. Let's go and call it as b3. So when you can see that git checkout minus b3, it has switched to a new branch called b3. So what it has done, sir, is if I go and open my desk scribble, when I go and run this command called as git checkout minus b3, it does two things. Internally, it runs a command called as git branch b3. So it first creates the branch, and then it runs command called as git checkout b3. So this command also creates a branch, and it also checks out to a new branch, right? So this is how we go and do it. So you will see that many of the time this checkout command has a lot of users, this checkout command, right? So one of the uses of checkout we have already seen here is that one of the uses of checkout is to go and create a branch. Go to a branch, so you can go and create the branch also, or you can switch to a branch. Sometimes you would like to go and create the branch out of a commit. What I mean to say here is that, let's say that I do a git log, right? Let's do a git log. Let's say that I want to say that git log. I have the different commits. Let's say I want to go and check out at this point of a time. Okay? I want to check out to this commit ID. So I can go and say that git checkout, and I go and pass this commit ID and hit enter. So when you go and run this, let's try to focus on the screen here. It is trying to say, I have used this command called as git checkout, and I have passed this commit ID. I'll pass this as the commit ID, right? As soon as I do it, it gets created this one. At this point of a time, if I go and tell you, what it is, if I go and say that git branch, it has not created a branch as such, but something which is more of like a totally detached code base, and it is named as head detached at C275B2B. So basically, if you see here, what is C7525? It's the initial of this commit ID. So any changes that you want to here will stay here. It will not impact any other branch. And once you are done with your changes, you are happy with it. If you want to move to that new branch, you can use this command called as a git switch -c, and you can provide the new branch name. So what it means that at this point of the time, if I go and create another file called as, so if I go and see that here right now, you want to header, I have file 1 and file 2. I'm going to create a new file called as vi file 8.txt, and inside this I go and pass something, and I go and close this, and I go and say that git add, git commit -m, and I go and provide this as git code, right? And then what I do is I want to move it to the, so again if I go and do this git branch, I'm here only. If I move to any other new specific branch, I can go and use this command called as git switch -c, and then the branch name. So I go and say the git switch -c, and I go and call it as branch final. Now if I go and do that git branch, that detached branch which was there, which was temporarily, this is gone now. This is gone. It's no more there, and I have this final branch, and I'm here. So this is one of the another use case of the checkout, where you can actually go and check out from one of the commits. Normally you don't use it. I have not seen many people using that in the industry, but yes, you have the choice. If you know a commit ID, you want to get started from that specific point, you can simply go and check out that, and then once your changes are done, you are happy, you can move that to a specific branch. Fair enough. So this is how typically, sir, you go and deal with the branches. The next important concept that comes handy, and that concept is called as merge conflict. The next important concept that becomes very important for us to understand is the concept of the merge conflict. Let's try to understand what is that. Let's assume that in the very beginning, and try to focus here, so it's very important. Let's say that I have a main repository here, and in this main repository I have a file 1.txt, and it has one first line of the content which says hello world. Now at this point of time, from here I created a new branch called as b1, and the same point I also created another branch called as b2. Both was done at t equals to 0, and this was also done at the same time, right? At this point of the time, the main one has at the stage c1 commit, and I have done b1 and b2. Now b2, what it did, b2 went ahead and in the same file 1.txt, it updated the file with hello student 1. And in this very same point of time, the b2 also updated the same file called as file 2.txt. It updated it to the hello student 2. Now once this change is also done and committed, and this is also done and committed, what it does, first of all, this guy tries to bring it back, so it wants to merge it. So the same file file 1, he made the change and he tried to merge it. So this hello 1 gets changed to hello 1, hello world gets changed to the hello student 1. Now this guy b2, who was making changes in the file 2, he is expecting that initially it was hello world and I have changed this to the hello student. But when he tries to again merge it back, he sees that he was expecting that it should see hello world, but he's seeing hello student 1. The state of the file 1 has got changed. And if that happens at this point of time, this merge can't happen. Why it cannot happen? Because b2 was expecting some other state of main, but it has been changed by the b1. This situation where the merge cannot happen is called as a merge conflict. But even if you go toward the merge conflict, let's try to see that how the merge happens. So we'll first try to see how the merge happens using the commands, and once it is done, then we'll try to see that how the merge conflicts arises, and how do we go and sort that out. So for that, let's do the hands-on exercise. Let's quickly go to our terminal. Let me go and open my terminal. Let me go and do this clear. Okay, now I am at which branch right now? I am at the branch final. Let me go and check out git checkout. Let me go and call it to the main branch. Fair enough. I go and do the git status. It's all clean. Fair enough. ls. So I go and do this clear and I do the ls. This is how file1.txt, file2.txt, file3.txt. Cool. Let me go and create a branch called as git checkout -b, and I go and say that branch name is branch1. Okay. Now in branch 1, if I go and do ls, I still have the one file only, file1.txt, file2.txt, and file3.txt. If I go and see the content of the file 1, if I go and see that file1.txt, it's saying hello students again. I can actually go and change this. Let me go and call this as hello world. Fair enough. If I go into the git status now, it will say that I'm on the branch 1. It is saying that I'm the branch 1, and this is the file which has to be staged and then committed. So what I do here is that I go and do this git add git commit -m, and I say that file1 change. Fair enough. And at this point of time, if I go and see here, let me do this clear. So I am on a branch. If I go and see the branch here, say git branch, I'm on the branch 1, and here if I go and see the files, I have file1.txt, and if I do say cat file1.txt, then it is hello world. If I go back to the original branch called as main, so if I go and say that git checkout main, I'm on the main branch, and here again if I go and do the cat file1.txt, then I say that hello students again. So what do you see here is that in my branch, which is branch 1, and this, if I go and see the file1 text, the content is hello world. But in my branch which is main, right, which I have checked out, in the same file I have the content which is called as hello students again. So this is version 1. This is version other one. Now what if I want, I'm at the branch main, and this is a branch called as branch 1. If I want that all the changes which done should get merged to this, what I need to, first of all be in this branch which I am right now, and then I have to run a command called as, I go and run a command called as git merge and the branch name which is branch 1. And if you see here, as soon as I go and run this command called as git branch 1, normally what is, I have the main and I have the branch 1. Whatever is the code of this, it has got merged with the code base of the main. As you can see here, file1.txt, something has been added, something has been removed, one file change, one insertion, one deletion. So now if I again go and do this cat file1.txt, you see that hello world is showing up now, right? The same branch which is the main, but now since it has been merged from the another branch, the file1 text which was previously hello students again is now showing hello world. Am I clear till this point? So you can always merge the content of one of the files to the another file, and that's how the things works in the industry. Again, if I come back in the industry, what will happen? As I was telling you, there will be one main branch. The different people in your team might be working on their own feature branch, branch B1, branch B2, branch B2, B3. Once they are done with their changes and they want to add their changes to the main, they will have to do the merge their code. Now, one of the main efforts which happens in the industry is all around merging your code to the main. And I was telling previously also, let's think of a scenario again. I'll repeat that. Let's say that there's the same file called as file1.txt. And at this time, we are in the branch called as main. And from the same main branch, let's say that two different branches got created, B1 and B2. B1 has also acted on the same file called as file1.txt, and B2 also has added on the same file called as file2.txt, same line of the code. Whoever does the merge, this works fine. But when B2 will try to do the merge, he is doing the merge expecting some state of file1 which has already been changed, right? Initially file1 is in the stage, let's say that stage 1. Now when I did the change, got to stage 2. Now I'm trying to merge B2 into the main, assuming that the state remains the same, but it's not the case. And in this situation, you'll get a merge conflict. Let's try to see that with the help of example again. So if I go back to my terminal and let me clear all things up. So I am here, git branch, and I have, I'm in the main branch here, right? And I have the files. If I go into the cat file1.txt, it is hello world, right? Let me go and create 2 branches, right? Let me go and call it as, first of all, git branch B11. Let me go and call it as, what should I name? Let me go and call it as C1. And we're going to create another branch called as branch C2. Fair enough. Then I go and check out, git check out C1. And inside this C1, I go and see what are the files. I go and open the same file, file1.txt. On the first line, I go and call it hello world, and I go and just add later here, call as 1. And then I go and say git add, git commit minus m, and I say that C1 changes. Fair, this is done. What has happened? If I try to visualize here, if I want to visualize here, I have a branch called as main, and from the main I have opened a branch called as C1. Main had a file called as file1.txt. C1 will also have this file called as file1.txt, and in this I have made a changes. Okay. Now I want to do one thing. I want to go and merge this change to this main branch. How can I do it? I'll have to first come here. So I'll go and check out main now. Git check out main. Fair enough. And then I go and do that git merge. And I go and give the name of this branch C1. As soon as I do, I see that I'm able to do this up. Right, and if I go and see the comment of the cat file1.txt, I see that it's hello world, and then I see that 1 has also started coming here. Now, at that very moment, I also had another branch created. Which was C2, right? If you remember in the beginning, we created C2 itself. Now let's go to the C2. I go and say that git check out C2. And then let me go and open this file called as vi, and I'm going to call it that file1.txt. Now here in this, it is still showing hello world because I created this branch earlier than this merge that has happened. So it is still showing the previous version of file1.txt. Let me go and add it here as 2. Let me go and add this, git add, git commit minus m, and I go and say that C2 changes. Fair enough. And now I want to, whatever the changes that I have done here, boss, I want to go and merge this back here. So for that, I'll have to again come here. So I go and say that git checkout. I'll have to go and say that git check out. And I go and call it as what? Git checkout main. And then I go and say that git merge. I want to merge the changes from the C2 as well. And now here the trick is, please focus on here. As soon as I go and do this, let's see what it is trying to say. At this point, I will get something called as a merge conflict. Merge conflict. You see here, I did the git merge C2. Auto merging file1.txt because file1.txt has already been changed, and I have got this merge conflict in the file1.txt. txt. So I have to have the ways to go and fix this merge conflict. What are the options that I have here? So whenever there's a merge conflict, so if I go and try to see, whenever I have a merge conflict, boss, whenever I have a merge conflict, we should first try to understand, understand or see what is actually the problem is, right? So how can I do it? So if there's a merge conflict and I want to see that, let me first clear this up. I can go and see something called get status. Get status will tell me where we are. So it is saying that you are on the branch main. You are on the branch main, perfectly fine. You have unmerged path. So you have two options. See, Git is so beautiful. It always tells you the suggestion itself. It tells you either you have one option is that you go and fix conflict and run the git commit and then you are done. Or if you feel that you have done this merge by mistake and you don't want to do all these problems, you can just go and remove this merge, which is git merge -- abort to abort this merge. And it also tells you where is the problem. The problem is in this file1.txt. So I have two options. One, I go and fix this conflict, or I go and abort this merge. If I have to abort this merge, it's very simple. I can just go and run this command call as git merge -- abort. When I go and do this, and again if I go and do this git status, I'm on the previous state, nothing more. No, it's all clear. Everything is all clear. That was one option. Let me again do this git branch, git merge c2. I'm again in the state. If I go and do the git status, I find the same statement here. So this I have already seen, that if I have to go and about how can I do it, I have done it. Let's try to think about how do we fix this. How do I fix this kind of situation? To fix this kind of situation, first of all, you can try to see that what the problem is. So you can go and say that git log, which will be more log -- merge. So git log -- merge will tell you that what are the different commits which led to this merge conflict. So the one of the conflict was in the C2 changes and then C1 changes, and both of them were being done on the same file itself, and that's why it has happened. So this command will help you understand that why the merge conflict happened and how do we go and resolve it. So how do we resolve it? To resolve it, basically you have to go and open this file called as file1.txt. So I come here, let me go and open this file, which is file1.txt. vi file1.txt. I open it. Now here you will see the changes suggested by both the branches. This is from the branch 1 C1 and this is from the branch C2. Now it's up to you to decide which changes you want to keep and which changes you want to discard. Also you see that additional symbols like this and this which has come up, which has to be removed. So what I'll do here is I will go and remove this line. So if I go and double press DD, if first line gets deleted, I would like to keep the first one. I want to remove this one and I want to remove this one, and then I go and save this file. Once I have done this and I do the git status, you will see that it will no more show that there is a merge conflict, and then I go and do this git add dot, and then I go and say that git commit -m, and I'll say that merge conflict resolved. And I am done. So this is how you go and merge the content of one branch into the another. If the conflict arises, this is how you go and solve it. Do a little practice, because I think this is one of the very common scenarios. You will be working with multiple devs. Irrespective of what best strategy that you follow, you will end up in a situation where two developers had modified the same file, and then you will have to go and resolve the merge conflict thing. Since we have understood now everything around the local, it's time to go to the remote and see how the interconnection between the local and the remote works. So now, since we have mastered almost everything which I feel is needed for you guys to understand that what happens on the Git local, right? It's time to go and see that what are the capabilities which GitHub brings to the table. GitHub. We already have a brief introduction where we know that how to register, how to make account, how to create the repository. Let's try to deep dive what we have here. And once that is done, then we'll try to talk about the integration of both the local as well as the remote. So let me go and open my Chrome here. And you see here, this is the demo repo that we created. This is the demo repo that we created here. Let me go and click on this. Now what I can do is that in this whole repo, right, the different sections that you go and see here. So what I can do here is, in order to get started, if you scroll down, let me go and open my disk scribble. In this repo, it is saying that if I have to go and get started, typically, right, if you see here, it is saying that you can do that by creating a new file. So what I'll do here is that I'll go and click on this and create a new file. Now when I'm trying to create a new file, try to see the whole interface. Just let me zoom it out. This is the name of my repo, which is the name of the project, and this is the name of my branch. This is my branch that I have, which is the main branch. And in this, I'm trying to create a file. We're going to create a file called as file1.txt, and let me go and put it here as hello world. The same thing which we have been doing through the command line on the terminal, I'm trying to do through this user interface, right? Once I'm done with this, I again have to go and click on the commit changes. When I do commit changes, I have to go and provide the commit message, which has just provided the name of this file. I can go and change it, and I can add, provide more detailed description. I go and click on this commit changes, and now if you see here, this is my repo, this is my branch that I created, which was there. Actually, I didn't create, it was there all the time. This is the commit ID, which telling when it happened, and this is the file which I got created. If I go and click on this commit thing, it will go and tell me what all things happened, right? All the details that please provide more detailed description, blah blah blah, main file committed now, this is the commit ID, this is the file, and this is what got added. Fair enough. Let me go back to my code here. If I click on this, I see the commit history. Only one commit has happened so far, so I see the commit history here. Just what the git log does there, this button is doing the similar work, so that I go and see the commit history. If I go back again, what are the other things that I have? I can go and create another file, click on the new files, I can go and do that. If you want to go and upload from some other sources, you can also do that. Here I have the branch main, okay? If I want to go and create a new branch, I can just go and call it as a branch 1. Since it is not there, and I click enter, it will go and create the branch 1 from the main. So now you see that branch 1 has one more file called file1.txt. If I go and add anything in this branch, it will not go impact the main branch. Yes. If I go and create another branch called as, for example, create new file, and let me go and call this file as file2.txt, file2.txt, right? And then I can say that hello students again, and I click on the commit changes. If you see here, this branch 1 has 2 files. If I go and change the branch to the previous one, which is the main, I will have only the 1 file. Now, if you see here, what I have done is, so I had a main branch, and the main branch I had a file called as file1.txt. From the main branch, I have cut another branch called as branch 1, and in that have added one. It initially already had file1.txt, and it also had a file called as file2.txt. Now I know that in any code base there could be only one main branch, which could be used for production deployment or the final code readiness. So GitHub is smart. It says that as soon as you go and create a new branch and you have added a new file, you would want this to be merged. The process of merging is that you have to raise something called as a pull request, and that's why this suggestion has started coming up. Right, so if I want to go and merge the changes from this branch, which we have seen already how we do it in the local, let me go and click on this compare and pull request. And then it is trying to say that I'm trying to merge, if you see here, I'm trying to merge the content from this branch 1 to the main branch, right? The branches can be automatically merged. This is what it is trying to say. In the case if there is a merge conflict, it will ask you to resolve that. But right now there's no issue, so it's able to do that. It's just that we have to go and provide the permission. I go and click on the create pull request. This is done. It is trying to check if everything could be merged, and if everything is fine, then it asks me, do I want to merge it? Yes, I go and click on it, and that's how I go and confirm the merge. Once the merge is done, and if I go back to my repo here, if I go back to my demo repository here, you'll see that now I have file 1 also and I have file 2 also. So changes has been merged, and you can see here the last activity was that merge pull request number 1 from this branch to this branch. So by now I just wanted to show you people, walk you through this whole GitHub thing so that you understand that what things happens here. Now once we are done, my first task now is that I want to do the following exercise. What is that exercise? I have this remote code. I want to bring this on my local machine. Right? I know there's a branch. I want to bring this code on my local machine. How do I do it? For this, we use a technique called as a git clone. What we do, we make use of a technique called as a git clone. So I'll go back to my here, and in this case, typically, if I go and talk about the code, I click on this, and I go and click on this. So I've copied the link that I have, and using this, I will try to go and clone it. So I have this remote repo, which is a demo repo. If I go and click on this code, I get this HTTPS code link of this. I just go and copy this, and let me go and open my terminal. Right? I have to first of all find a location where I would like to bring this code on my local machine. The code is there on the remote GitHub. My use case is that I want to go and bring on my local machine. So what I go and do is that I go and make a folder. Let me clear this up. I'm at this git ground location. If I go and open my finder, let me try to do it that way. So I'm here in the work, inside work, then I have git ground. Let me go and create a folder. Or maybe let's say that this is the location where I would like to go and git clone that entire project. Right? So I'm that location, git ground. This is the location. If I go and do the PWD, you can see that it's inside the users, Vishwa work, git ground. What I need to do, I make use of the command called git clone, and that URL that I copied, I just go and paste it. Now, for this connection to work, you have to understand you need to have an internet connection, because your computer has to connect over the net, go to the GitHub servers and fetch this URL content. If I hit enter, it is saying that git clone blah blah. The destination path demo repo already exists, it is not an empty. What happens is, if I go and do the ls here, there is another demo repo which is already present, right? So what I'll do is, I'll go and create a directory called as mkdir cloned repos, and I'll go inside this clone repos, and I'll again do the same thing, git clone now, and paste this link. If you see here, and dig deep, as soon as I go and run this command git clone https, right, it is saying cloning the demo repo. Then it has started doing it one after the another, compressing the object, blah blah, all the saving as 100% is done. So at this point of time, all the content which was present on the remote, it has been brought down to this laptop, my laptop where I'm working for, in this location. So now if I go and do the ls, if I go and do the ls here, I see there is a demo repo. If I go inside this demo repo and do the ls, I'll see the multiple files, file1 txt and file2.txt. If I do ls minus a, there is .git file already present. So even if I don't do the .git init file, since it is a git repo which I have cloned from the remote, this is a git initialize. So all the git commands will be working here. So for example, another thing that if I go and the git status, you see that I'm on the branch main and everything is working all fine. Cool. If I go and talk about the git branch, I see there's only one branch called as main. But if I go and open my, if you see here, there were two branches, right? Main and branch 1. Why it is not showing up? So when you go and run the git branch, it only gets you the branches which is there on your local machine. If you have to go and find the branches which is also there on the remote, you have to go and use a command called as git branch minus a. So when you go and do this git branch minus a, it tells you, boss, that this is your local. And these are the remote branches. The remote also, you have a main branch, you have a branch 1, right? Like this, it goes and explains to you. So with this, sir, we have been able to, so with this, what has happened? With this, my use case has been that I have on my github.com, I have a code repo. If I want to bring this code repo on my laptop, the command which I have to make use of will be git clone, and I have to go and provide the URL of this. That's number one. Now let's talk about the second scenario. The second scenario is that, let's say that I am creating some git repo here, right? I have some git code and I want to push this to my remote. For example, right now, if I go and open my terminal, right, and come here, I have this learning git, right? If I go inside this learning git, this is a git repo, right? If I go and see here, I'm here, and inside this is the git repo that I have. Now I would want that everything that I have on this my local machine, this learning git which you see here, I want to move this to the remote, which is GitHub. How do I do it? So for doing this, there are two-step process that we'll have to do. First of all, I'll have to do GitHub and create a repo on GitHub. That's number one. Then I have to connect local with remote. And third thing that I'll have to do is I'll have to go and push the code. How does it happen? Let's try to see with an example. So the first step is the repo. You go and create the repository, then you connect the local with the remote, and then you push the code. So let's get started with the first part where I have to go and create the repository first of all. So I have to move this learning git code. So I go and open my Chrome, and here in this case I go and create another repository. Let me go and call it as learning git. It would be of the same name or the another name, whatever that you feel. So let me go and call it as a learning git. I say that this will help us understand the concept of pushing the code from the local. This is very important for you people to write the code in the local, and will tell you that go and push that on the GitHub and then send me the link. So this you will have to do again and again. So make sure that you're watching this very clearly and crisply. I would like to make it public. That's perfectly fine. And then I want to click on this create repository. As soon as I go and create it, if you come here, you have a different options. You have one of the options is that you create a new repository on the command line. And the second option is that you push an existing repository from the command line. From my local machine, I already have an existing repository. I already have done the git init. So in that case, what I need to do here is I simply go and copy this code. And if you see it, let's try to understand that. The very first line here, which will get executed, is git remote add origin. What this line does is that you have your code which is there on the local machine, and this is the repo called as learning git. So I'm trying to make a connection between your local machine code to this GitHub repo, and I'm naming this connection what? I'm naming this connection as origin. So with this git remote add, I'm saying that my local repo get added to a remote repo on GitHub, which is learning git, and I'm giving this name as origin. If I want to make anything, I can give the name as Karina, I can make it as Shahrukh, anything, but the origin is the standard which we typically go and make use of. So I go and make use of this as origin. Then I'm saying that my branch right now is main, and then I'm trying to say that go and push the code from my local machine to the origin main branch. So when you're pushing the code, you have to define from which branch in the local to the which branch in the remote. So what I need to do here is typically I just have to go and copy this. I have copied this up, and then I come here and I just paste this line of code, hit on the enter. Now when I do this, when I'm trying to connect your local to the GitHub, one thing that you need to do is that you need to have the GitHub account, and the repo that you would like to go and push the code to, you should be the owner of it. You should be owner of it. So whenever you try to go and do it, they will ask for the credentials. So dude, what is your username for the github.com? What is my username? I'll come here and I'll try to go and find what is my username. right? So my username here is Vishwa07dev, right? So I can go and write it as Vishwa07dev, and then password for my password. So let me go and put my password. I hit enter. Now when I do this, it is saying that, and I'm doing it purposefully because this is one of the issue that you might face. Support for the password authentication was removed on August 13, 2021. So you cannot do the password based authentication. Then what can I do it? Please see this documentation on currently recommended modes of the authentication. Authentication failed for this, right? So what I need to do is that let me go and copy this URL. So I will go and copy this, right? And let me go and open it here on the browser. Right? Let me clean this. Cloning with HTTPS URL. The HTTP cloners are available for all repositories. If I come here, this URL is not giving much information, right? So what we do is that we go and search this itself and see how it works. I'm just trying to do it in the way if you find any issues, how do you go and do it? I'm just trying to replicate that. When I click this link, I'm not getting much here. Let me go and click this. How do I go and solve this? So I'm on the Stack Overflow and clicks on this, and it's saying that support for the password authentication was removed on August 13, 2021 duplicate. Let's see the first answer. So in order to fix this, this blog post has given me certain suggestions, right? So basically what we have to do is that we have to go to the GitHub accounts, then we have to go into developer settings, then have to select the personal access token and then generate a new token. Fill in any nodes and select the access scopes. Once done, click on the generate token. Once the generate token is placed password to communicate with the GitHub, right? So now these are all the secrets. So I'll just do all these steps, see if it works, and then confirm you people that that worked. And then I think you people will have to follow the same steps. So you have to go to the GitHub account, find and select the developer settings, find and select the personal account, generate a new token, fill in any nodes, and then you're done. So to get the access token, what we need to do, I come here, I go and click on the settings. On the settings, you can go to the developer settings. And here the personal access token is coming, and you go and click on the tokens classic, and then you go and click on the generate new token. So I go and click on this. I have to go and pass my password. Confirm. For the code push, expiration in 30 days. I go and click on the generate token. We go and copy this and see if this works here. So I can go and repeat the same thing, get remote add. When I do this, username, the username is Vishwa07dev. Password, I go and pass this key. Now it is saying that it denied it. Let's try to see why that happened. So if I go and click on the generate new token again here, it'll go and ask me, this is for push. Fair enough, expiration 30 days. Scope define the access for the personal tokens, where it should be used. So it should be used in the repo, workflows, everything. Let me go and give this. So all these tokens, what all things that I need to go and provide, I have to go and do this. Let me go and provide this, all the access. Right, for the now. We'll talk more about all these things in our advanced Git lecture about all of this. For now, let's move and go provide all of them. And we'll be going to click on the generate token. So this is the new token which got generated. Let me copy this and go back here again. And let me go and run this again. And now I go and pass the name, which is Vishwa07dev. And then I'm passing this password, hit on the enter. And then finally I'm done. The last time it didn't work, and I was purposefully doing it because you might miss it. You have not given the scope in which that token has to be used. So now if you see here what all things happened once I have been able to authenticate this right? You see here that it is trying to compress the objects, writing the objects, then resolving deltas, and then it has sent the data from the main to main. So from this way, we have understood. If I go and open my GitHub right now, right, which is here, typically, let me come here back here. It will also give me the location here. If I go and copy this, put it here, right, you see that my local file 1.txt, file 2.txt, file 3.txt is all there, and all my commit history is also showing up here. All the commit which I did on the local is being also presented here. So with this, sir, we have been able to make the connection and have been able to make the changes, move the changes from the remote, from the local to the remote. So far we have seen that we have made the connection, but the code which is there on the local and the remote, fair enough. If there's a remote code, I can just go and clone it. If it is a local, then I have to go and add that repo. Fair enough. But let's think of a situation where, let's say that this is remote and this is my local. And for example, I am at the version v1. I push this code. And the remote right now is also at the version v1. Now let's say that at remote itself, I made some changes, added change. So this v1 has now become equals to v2. My local still has v1. Now if I want to go and bring this change v2 from the remote back to the v1, how do I go and bring this? How do I do it? In order to do this, we can use a command called as git pull. We do a command called as git pull. Let's try to see that in action. So let me go and open my Chrome. Okay, so this is my repo. Let me go and create one more file, and let me go and call it as file4.txt, file4.txt. And here I go and say this is a new file created, done. And I click on the commit changes. Now if you see here on my remote, I have 4 files, file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. If I go and open my terminal, on my local machine where I am here, if I go and do this clear, I am on the branch. Sorry, I have to go and put git branch. It's main. And if I go and say that ls, I see that I have only 3 files, file 1, file 2 and file 3. So if I want that the changes which is there in the remote I have 4 files, and I want the files to come on my local machine, which is this learning git folder. What I'll have to do? I'll have to go and run a command called as git pull. I have to go and say that git pull. If I go and hit this git pull, try to read this, what it is happening here. Let me go and open my desk scribble. And if you see here, when I did the git pull, let me change the color to red. When I did the git pull, it stayed remote enumerating objects, counting objects, compressing objects, blah, 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 blah. Then from this here, it has got here updating this. One file got added. There's one insertion that has happened. What has happened? File4.txt. So to see the outcome of this, let's do the ls and see if that file has got it. So I do ls. I see that file4.txt has been added here, boss. I have got file4.txt. So this is how you go and get the data from the remote. Okay. Now just like pull, if I go and see here git log, then you will find here that these are the commits, and the latest one which is here happening September 7th, right? If you see here, there's a commit merge that you go and see, right? What you're seeing is the commit merge. This is the origin, which is the remote, and this is my local. So when I go and say that git pull, when I go and do the git pull, sir, it actually does the two things. One, it does the git fetch. Git fetch means that you're trying to take the changes from the remote and bring it to the local, and then you do the git merge. So you bring the changes from the remote, bring it to the local, and you merge it also, right? So typically this is the example of a merge commit. This is an example of a merge commit, right? There is one more way through which you can go and get the changes from the remote. What are those? Let's try to see that. Okay, so let's say that I'm doing clear, blah blah blah. Let me go and create one more file here. And what will that file? Let me go and create that file as vi, and then file 5.txt, and then I go and say something like this, some random comment under here, and then I go and say the git add dot git commit -m fifth file, and then if I go into git log, it will show me this, right? This is where I am. So this is the git history that you go and see here, right? This here, this is from the main. That's how it is looking like right now. Fair enough. So now if I go and do this, let me go and push this code, git push. It will go and make the changes to the push. Now if I go and again go and see my repo here, and I do the refresh, you will see that there are 5 files. Now let's say that I have made another change in the file from the remote itself. Again, I go and create something called as file6.txt. Let me go and write it, file6.txt. I say that hello from the 6th file. I go and click on the commit changes. Now if again I want to go and take the changes back to the origin, from the origin to the local, I have one command called git pull. There's one more command which is there, which is called as git rebase. So if I go and say that terminal, I can go and say that git rebase. Now when I go and say that git rebase, it says the current branch main is up to date, right? Now you see that git rebase, it's saying current branch main is up to date. Now I have to go and tell actually from where I have to go and rebase. So I go and say that git rebase, and I go and say that origin/main. Now, if you see here, let me go and do the git fetch, and after I'm fetching this, then I should, if I go and do this git rebase origin/main, then I have got the data here. Now, if I now do the ls, I see that I have the 6 files. Now, typically when I'm trying to do the git rebase, if you go and see, the scribble, typically here, when I did this, typically it doesn't have the origin main right now. So what we did, we first of all fetched the data. So when I fetched the data, I got the data here. And after that, when I get the rebase, it has successfully rebased and updated the reference headsman, and I'm able to get the file6.txt. So using the rebase also, you can also do the same thing. If I go and see the log here, git log, I'll see here that of late, this is the latest one, which is the create to the file 6. This is the result of the rebase. Fair enough. Now the question that might come to you people is that what is the difference between the git pull and git rebase? Also sometime in the interview, it's a very important question to be asked. That what is the difference between the git pull and git rebase? Right? So let's assume that you are working on your local and you are in the main repo. Fair? And let's say that you have created a new commit called as cx is the new commit that you have created here. And on your remote, you have created a new commit called as cy. Now at this point of time, when you try to you go and try to pull the code from remote to the local with the help of the git pull, right? It creates something called as a merge commit. Where it tries to merge these two changes together. This happens in the case of the git pull. Let's try to see with an example. So what I do here is that I go to my terminal, and in this, let me clear it out. This is the situation right now. Let me go and create something called as new file. Let me go and call it v1, and I go and call it as file7.txt. Or let me do one thing. In this do this vi files. In this file 6.txt, let me create a line one file 7.txt. Okay, and then we go and call something like da 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 da, and I go and complete this wq. And then I go and say that git status, git add, git commit -m, and I go and say that new file added, done. And then on my remote, if I go open my remote here also I go and add a new file, and let me go and call it as file 7 dot file 8.txt, and hello, and we're going to click the commit changes. Now at this point of time, if I go and do this git pull, now when I go and do this, I have got this error. What is the error that I'm seeing? Let's try to read that. And I have purposely tried to replicate this error so that you're clear what to do in this case. So I was there in the main. I made some changes on my local machine, right? And then on the remote also, I did some changes. So it is trying to tell me this statement: your divergent branches, I need to specify how to reconcile them. You can do so by running one of the following commands: git config pull rebase false merge, git config pull rebase to rebase, git config pull only fast forward only. You can replace git config with the git config minus global to set a default preference for all the repositories. You can also pass minus rebase, no rebase to override the configured default per invocation. So if I again see the status here, git status, it is saying that your branch and origin may have diverged and have one different commit seeds respectively. Use git pull to merge the remote branch into yours. Nothing to commit, working tree clean, right? So if I go and run this git pull, this is what it is saying. And if I go into the git log, this is the new file that has got added. And if you see, my git pull is not working at all here, right? So if I still see, if I go and still see the ls here, I have file 1, file 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. On my remote, I have, if I go and refresh it, I have file 8. Fair. Now, when I'm trying to do git pull, it's not allowing me to do it. It's giving me the error. You have a divergent branches because the changes that I did. Why it is happening? Because the changes which I did in the remote, right? This is my state, and then this is remote, right? This was in state v1, this was also in state v1. Now this v1 has been changed to the state v2. Remote is still knowing that it is still in the state v1 and it has moved to the state v3. So when I'm trying to pull this, remote is expecting that the local should be still v1, but the local has now become equals to v2, and that's why it is not able to do it. So if I have this, what should I do here? So it is saying that if you want to do this, you have to follow one of these commands that you have to go and do it. You want to go and merge, you want to do the rebase, and you want to do the fast forward. You have to put one of the options, right? So I'll go and set this rebase option as false, or I go and say that git that config pull dot rebase false, okay, and then I go to the git pull, right, and then I go and do the wq, and if I do the git log now, this commit which has happened here, if you want to see here, this is a merge commit. This is a merge commit. This is a merge commit, boss. This is right now the merge commit. This is what the git pull creates. Let's try to see what the git base will do, right? So if I go and do this q, let me go and push this up, git push. I have done the git push, that's all fine. So now the remote also has the similar changes. So if I go and open it up, the remote also, if I go and refresh it, it will have file 1, file 2, file 3 till file 8. Okay. Now again, let's try to do the same exercise and try to do the rebase again, right? So if I go and do the, let me go and create another file called as, let me clear this up, create vi, and then I go and as file 9.txt. And I go and put something, close this up, and let me go and add this git add dot git commit minus m, adding 9th file. Fair enough. Let me try to go and make the changes in the remote also. So what I go and do, I go here and let me go and create another file called as file 10 dot, sorry, we're going to click on this file 10.txt hello from the 10th file. Commit changes, click on the commit changes. This is done. Now what I do now is, let me do the git. So now at this point of time, I want to bring the remote changes to the local node. So I do want to say that git rebase. It will not do anything because I don't have that. So I have to first go and get the git fetch. And now if I go and do the ls, I still have 9, I don't have 10, right? So I go and say that git rebase origin master. So master is the main. Hit enter. Now if I go into the ls, you see that I also have file 10.txt got added. And if I do the git log, you will see that this 10th file was added from the remote. This was added in the local. And I have a very clean commit history. In this case, there are no merge commits created. So when you make changes in the local, you also make changes in the remote and you try to merge them. If you go and make use of git pull command, it will create the merge commit. But if you directly go and do the git rebase, it will create a very clean commit history. So in the case if you are interested in keeping your commit history very clean one after the another, make use of git rebase. And if you want to do the git pull and you don't care about if it creates a merge, the merge commits as well, I think we'll go ahead with the git pull either. So with this, we have come to the end of this amazing one-shot video on GitHub. So whether, as I said, you are a data scientist, you are a full stack developer, you are a student, you are a professional, one tool which you always will use in your projects whenever you have to share with your team, you have to work collaboratively, or you want to have a backup, remote backup, is the version control using local Git and GitHub. I hope you had a good understanding of it. Please let me know in the comments what next topics you want me to make video of, how helpful this was. Tag me over the LinkedIn because your love, your support, your small tag motivates me enough to keep on bringing the amazing videos like this. All the best, and I'll bring you the next video.